Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
As each of us uses some electronic device to log on to this assembly from our various locations, we create here a congregation. Life in COVID times has made so many things odd and now oddly normal, including how we come together for Sunday mornings. You may know that at FUS, each of the participants in the assembly records our various pieces during the week, and then our tech team does its magic, and we stream this assembly on Sunday mornings. I'm here in my home on Friday evening, and it's impossible to know for sure what will have transpired between right now, where I am, and when we all see this together on Sunday morning. So let me call us to assembly in this way. Let our gathering have the quality of time out of time. Let us enter this hour with all our hopes, fears, longings, and loves held in tender care. Let us rest for this moment from the news, whatever it may be. Let us look as one to the deeper values we share and the future we create. Come, let us assemble together.
Hello, friends. I'm Allison Wyeth, Director of Religious Education here at First Unitarian Society. Good morning. I'd like to invite all of our young ones to gather round for our time for all ages. Sometimes during this time, we hear a story that someone wrote, which can help us understand the ideas we'll be sharing in assembly. Today, I'm going to tell you a little something that actually happened to me that I think will help you make sense of the ideas we'll share later. So this summer, I was invited to participate in a candlelight vigil at the George Floyd Memorial Site in South Minneapolis. As you know, the sun goes down pretty late here in the summer, so we had a while to wait until the vigil could start so that we would be able to see the beautiful glow of the candles in the late evening turning to dark. While we waited, we listened to lots of speakers and calls for remembrance and justice. And at the same time, a summer storm began to move in really fast like it does here on the prairie. By the time the request came to light our candles, in remembrance of a life cut short by injustice, racist, state violence, and in the hope that one day we would create a more just world for us all, well, by then that storm was upon us. Yeah, there was rain and there was wind. And it was really hard to keep your candles lit. It took lots of careful attention. In fact, if you got distracted or gave up, that candle went out. In fact, we had to cup our hands around them so close that even if it didn't quite burn, it was pretty uncomfortable. And sometimes no matter how hard you tried, the candle went out and you had to ask someone to relight your candle with theirs, or you had to help someone who had their candle go out. So that's how it went in the dark, thinking about justice and injustice, hoping for better, and trying to keep our candles lit. And standing there, I got to thinking, isn't this just like working for justice and fairness in the world? As you know, we often speak at FUS about the fire of commitment or the flame of justice, because working for more justice, equity, and compassion in the world can often feel very much like that night on the corner of Chicago and 38th. The howling winds of white supremacy culture, unfairness, meanness, and threats can endanger the very existence of the little flame of justice we're trying to tend. But we keep going, don't we? We carefully and tenaciously wrap our hands around the flame and shield it from those forces that would snuff it out, even when it starts to get pretty uncomfortable. We do our level best not to get distracted from the task, but still sometimes do, with obvious results. And when our fire of commitment does actually go out, or someone else's does, well, we must turn to one another for a spark of inspiration or encouragement to relight our flame, because we know that our shared flames bring beauty and comfort, and we hope justice. So as I close, won't you please take a moment right now and think about the people around you, whose flame might need your help to be relit? Is your flame sputtering? Who or what will you connect with to relight it when needed?
Each week when we gather, we light our chalice and share one of the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, or one of the aspirations of our congregation. This week we light the chalice remembering our aspiration to make the change we need for a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world.
Now for our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
We walk in love, united in purpose. We join our hands and lift up one voice. We speak the truth with strength and compassion, resounding with hope, with courage and joy. We cry for peace and rights for all people. We welcome friends from far and near. We fight for those whose voices are silenced, resisting in faith until all are free. We dream a world of justice and kindness. We build a bridge, creating new paths. We march with joy and all walk together, embracing each one. We boldly stand.
On Sundays when we gather, we take a few minutes to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and milestones of the human experience. We do this so that we stay in touch with our own humanity. We do this to remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. And we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating joy or in facing the burdens of life. This morning we have a couple of quick updates from two of our FUS members whom we mentioned last week, Tom Walsh and Barbara Blackstone. We wanted to let you know that the obituary for Tom's wife, Nancy Walsh, who died on October 28th, appears in today's Star Tribune newspaper. The link to the online version will be posted in the Assembly chat, and we invite you to take a look and learn more about Nancy's life. And Barbara Blackstone, who sustained a head injury in a fall the week before last, is continuing to improve. She is still in the hospital but is out of the ICU, and we continue to send our good thoughts for healing her way. If you'd like to send a card to Tom or Barbara, you can contact me for their addresses or send the cards to the FUS office. Also this morning we paused to remember, amid all the news and noise, that Veterans Day is this coming Wednesday. May we think with gratitude of all those who have served in the armed forces, sometimes at great cost. And may the day soon come when the needs of veterans are met by a government that respects their service and sacrifice. And as we remember that the November 11th holiday was originally Armistice Day, a day to celebrate peace, may we think with gratitude of all those, military and civilian, who strive and sacrifice to bring about a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world. Let us now share a moment of silence. As we come out of the silence, we'll hear our traditional musical response. You are invited to sing along or simply listen.
This
gathered congregation of First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, officially incorporated back in 1881. The 1881 Articles of Incorporation for FUS declare our purpose, quote, to form an association where people without regard to theological differences may unite for mutual helpfulness in intellectual, moral, and religious cultures and humane work. What an amazing idea that was then and continues to be to this day, gathering people without regard to theological differences. In 1881, James Garfield had just been elected president by a margin of 2,000 votes. And that election was seen as a referendum on the continuing federal try at Reconstruction in the South. And so the federal government withdrew and left African Americans at the mercy of embittered Confederates, and thus began the unspeakable brutality of the Jim Crow era. Well, then there was the Spanish-American War, World War I, women's suffrage, prohibition, the Great Depression, the New Deal, the Second World War, the Atomic Era, the Cold War, McCarthy era, the Korean War, the space race, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Civil Rights era, the Vietnam War, second wave feminism, desegregation, LGBTQ struggles, terrorist attacks, domestic terrorism, and 36 presidential elections. That's a lot. Through all those times, good and bad, joyful and nail-biting, FUS has been here, a beacon of progressivism, humanism, justice, and love. We embrace multiculturalism. We resist racism. We work toward the dream of everyone living a shared life in a shared world. First Unitarian Society is here because of a long line of people like you, because of the generations-long commitment of people who have found and supported a congregation practicing freedom and responsibility. There have been good times, there have been bad times, there have been births and deaths and marriages and protests and singing and laughter and tears. The essence of why we are here, however, has never changed. We are a people dedicated to a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Together, we will make it through this dark time as well, because we have each other. We have been and continue to be here to make the change we need for a more just, compassionate, and peaceful world. One way that we are going about doing that mission today is with Operation Share the Warmth. FUS, in partnership with our tenant, LoveWorks Academy, is providing cold weather wear for our students in need. We are requesting financial donations so that we can buy coats. Now, please take a look at the Friday emails and the November newsletter to make a donation for Operation Share the Warmth, or check the link in the chat for donations. Thank you so much for being a part of First Unitarian Society.
First, a reading entitled Gazelle, America the Beautiful by Alicia Ostriker. Do you remember our earnestness and sincerity in the first grade when we learned to sing America the Beautiful along with the Star Spangled Banner and say the Pledge of Allegiance to America? We put our hands over our first grade heart. We felt proud to be citizens of America. I said one nation invisible until corrected. Maybe I was right about America. School days, dear old golden rule days, when we learned how to behave in America, how to dress, how to smoke, how to despise our parents who didn't understand us or America. Only later learning the banner and the beautiful live on opposite sides of the street in America. Only later discovering the nation is divisible by money, by power, by color, by gender, by sex. America. We comprehend it now. This land is two lands, one triumphant bully, one still hopeful America, imagining amber waves of grain blowing in the wind, purple mountains, and no homeless in America. Sometimes I still put my hand tenderly on my heart, somehow or other, still carried away by America. Oh, my friends, these days, oh, this week, oh, our hearts carried away by America, carried on a tide of anxiety that at times this week has included nauseous optimism. These past 4 years, these past 400 years, the past month, the past 4 days have brought horror, frustration, the audacity of hope, determination, the exercise of our most basic rights as citizens for those who are allowed to exercise the right. Anger, fear, work, relief, and finally, the long release of our held breath. Many of us were already feeling ragged and jangly, running on worried sleep and fear of the very air we breathe. All the destabilization of our national life under authoritarianism, multiplied by the very real danger and losses of COVID, multiplied by this brutal election season and fear of the outcome. None of this is good for our human bodies and psyches. And so here we are, together as this congregation has been on Sunday mornings for 139 years. In these rapidly changing times, FUS continues to strive for nimbleness to respond to the needs of our congregation and to the world. For all that I said in our call to assembly that we record on Friday and air on Sunday, today I am with you live. We're trying out something new here at FUS so that we're able to respond to the breaking news of yesterday. How I wish we were together in our building on Mount Curve. There would be plenty of hooting and hollering going on, I'm sure. And so, and yet, here we are, virtually gathered in a month when our theme is healing, to ask, what's next? How do we find rest, healing, and recommitment to the values that bind us together? First, rest. Now that the election is decided, there is still a huge amount of work to do, and I'll get to that in a minute. What is so clear to me right now is that we must rest from these intense labors and anxieties of the past weeks and months so that we can be refreshed for the work that is yet to do. Poet and activist Audre Lorde said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." Finding ways to rest and renew ourselves through celebration, through nature, through connection with other people and other animals, through creativity, is essential to our humanity. Rest is an integral part of healing. Some of us, of course, never get to fully rest. Those of our community who are marginalized, who fear for their lives every time they walk out the door, if they have a door, rarely, if ever, get to fully rest. If I have the space and capacity to rest, I must consider this a blessing and the result of the system working for me. We may individually need rest. What needs healing is the whole system. This election, as a referendum on systemic racism in America, damns all of us. That almost half of the electorate was willing to support the so-called leadership of a proven racist and bigot who panders to white nationalists tells us what we must recognize about systemic racism in America. It should be neither shocking nor surprising that our nation, still so bound by its original sins of genocide and chattel slavery, continues to be unwilling to reckon with the carnage, unable to atone, unmoved to address our history of misery and murder. Some 70 million of our fellow countrymen assert that nothing matters as much as maintaining white supremacy culture. And the rest of us, in fact, all of us, are hurt by this lack of repudiation of this scourge. This points to a rottenness at the core of America, and I wonder what hope we have of really healing it. I hear quite a bit about finding unity, including from our president-elect. And as a Unitarian Universalist, I want to believe it. I believe in the worth and dignity of every person and that we don't write anyone off. And yet, I am also moved by the words of author Austin Channing Brown, who says, I am wholly uninterested in a conversation about unity that is not rooted in the unrelenting pursuit of racial justice. I would add that it must also be rooted in the unrelenting pursuit of gender justice, especially including safety for our LGBTQ+ siblings. In this moment, we must take time to celebrate the election of the first woman to the White House, the first woman, one of African and Asian descent, to be elected vice president. There is glass all around as this ceiling has been shattered. It only took 231 years of American electoral history to achieve this feat, and it is indeed cause for celebration and healing. In 1841, just 40 years before FUS was founded, Unitarian minister Theodore Parker formulated his religious views into a sermon entitled "The Transient and Permanent in Christianity." He referred to the transient as Christianity's theological and scriptural dogma, which was given to change over time, and the permanent in Christianity as its moral truths. I was reminded of Parker this week as we waited for election results, and how what happens in our life matters, of course. It makes a practical and material difference who holds the executive branch of our government. This affects all of our lives. But this is transient. No matter which party is in charge, our work as progressive congregational humanists is constant, if not quite permanent. Our work is to hold lawmakers accountable, to uphold the values of justice, compassion, and peace, to demand better care for our planet, to cultivate democracy over authoritarianism, to always, always hold the widest space for human rights. As individuals and as a congregation, let us continue to put our hands to Theodore Parker's arc of history. Put our hands alongside so many others who have gone before us and so many others with us today, both within and beyond our congregation. Let us all put our hands to that arc of history and bend it toward justice. In Alicia Ostraker's poem, America the Beautiful, she remembers how we learned to sing the song and say the pledge. and how she learned as she grew older that we are so divided as a nation. This past week, we have seen that divide in stark relief. And let us never assume that we are blameless in our pursuit of human rights. We have healing work to do in our own lives to suss out where we are vulnerable to division by money, by power, by color, by gender, by sex. The work of healing is both inner and outer work. And so we recommit to racial justice, to gender justice, to housing justice, climate justice, voting justice, compassion, to peace, to unity, to community, to each other, and to our ideals. After this joyful celebration, we rest. And then let us be about healing and commitment to the values that bind us together. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
Join me from home in our extinguishing the chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. Service with love and justice, strive to make us free. Oh, make us
Thanks so much for joining in our assembly today as we at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis continue the struggle for the liberation of all people. In the words of the Unitarian abolitionist and transcendentalist minister Theodore Parker, "Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. So may it be." Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.